I should have trusted my gut the first time I saw him. I'd been hiking alone since early morning, enjoying the quiet burn in my legs and the smell of pine after last night's rain. Around noon, I reached a fork in the trail, a wide, clear junction where the left path led upward to the ridge and the right sloped down toward the lake. I'd already made my choice and climbed a good 20 minutes when I heard footsteps approaching fast. He came around the bend, a man in his late 40s, thinning hair, backpack too small for a real hike. He was smiling, but not with his eyes. "Hey there," he said, adjusting his straps. "Do you know how far to the ridge junction? I think I passed it." I pointed behind me. "You did? Maybe 10 minutes back." He thanked me, a little too warmly, and walked past. I let it go. People get turned around all the time. But an hour later, when the trail looped west, I saw him again, coming from the opposite direction. I actually laughed. "Did you get turned around again?" He looked startled for a second too long. "Yeah, guess I'm bad with maps." He asked me for the same directions again, same tone, same smile. I gave the same answer, but this time something tightened in my chest. I kept hiking, a little faster. By the time I reached the higher switchbacks overlooking the ravine, the sun had dipped behind the cloud cover, turning everything a shade dimmer. I stopped for water and froze when I heard movement behind me. Steps, slow, deliberate. When I turned, the man was already too close, his face flushed, breath uneven like he'd been running. "Sorry," he puffed. I'm still looking for that junction." "No problem," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's still back the way you came." He nodded but didn't move. Instead, he stepped slightly behind me, angling himself to my blind spot. When I turned to face him fully, he pretended to tie his shoe. My skin prickled. I resumed walking. He followed. Not right behind, just far enough that I couldn't shake the sound of his footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Every time I sped up, he did too. After 5 minutes, another sound joined his. A lighter step, quicker, farther down the switchback. I stopped and held my breath. The man behind me stopped too. Only one set of steps had stopped. The other kept going. Someone else was moving below me, matching my pace from the opposite direction, closing distance on a trail that would loop them right in front of me. "Oh God," I whispered. The man behind me cleared his throat softly, like he knew I'd figured it out. I didn't think. I ran. The trail narrowed, the ravine yawning to my right. Branches whipped my arms. Pebbles skidded under my boots. Behind me, the man broke into a sprint. Below me, the second set of footsteps sped up, racing to intercept. They weren't lost. They were bracketing me, herding me. I spotted a fallen tree across a drainage ditch and vaulted it, nearly slipping on the wet trunk. I threw myself into the brush, crawling on hands and knees until the sounds blurred into confused shouts. They'd lost me, at least for the moment. I'm writing this from a ranger station, shaking so hard I can barely hold the pen. They're checking the trails now. But the worst part? When the ranger asked me to describe the man, he sighed. "We've been looking for him," he said. "He never hikes alone." We weren't even supposed to be on mile 27. The official route curved east along the ridge, but Mason saw the side trail first, a neat little corridor cutting straight through the canyon, so clean and crisp it looked landscaped. Fresh dirt, newly trimmed branches, perfectly spaced stepping stones, like someone had made it for us. "It'll shave off an hour," Mason said, already stepping onto it. None of us argued. We were tired, sunburned and hungry, and shortcuts are tempting when you're 3 days into a hike, so we followed him. The canyon walls rose around us, tall and smooth, muffling the wind until all we heard were our own footsteps. That's why we heard the click, a sharp, metallic snap under Mason's boot. We all froze. "What was that?" he whispered. Then the ground whipped upward. A snare line, camouflaged as a vine, cinched around Mason's ankle and yanked him sideways into a rock. He screamed and grabbed his leg as the tension released. "Trap," I said. "Someone set a trap." We moved to lift him, but the snare had cut deep. He could barely stand. "Let's go back," Kara said. "Right now." But when we turned around, the trail behind us suddenly felt different, wrong. The shadows seemed deeper. I stepped forward carefully, and my shoelace brushed something invisible. A thin line, translucent. "Fishing line. Don't move," I whispered. We traced the line with our eyes until we saw it tied to a ridge of rocks above us, a deadfall mechanism. A boulder balanced on just enough tension to crush anyone walking through. My mouth dried out. This wasn't here on the way in, and it wasn't the only new addition. A few steps off the main path, the dirt looked disturbed, too smooth, too intentional. Kara tossed a pine cone onto the patch. It sank, a concealed pit, packed with sharpened stakes. Mason swore under his breath. "We're not alone." An uneasy quiet settled over us. Then came the sound, soft, distant, from the cliffs above. Footsteps. Not rushed, not stealthy enough to hide. Someone wanted us to know they were there. "We need to keep moving," I said. "We can't go back." So we pushed forward, carrying Mason between us. The deeper we went, the more traps we saw, but always ones we could spot if we were careful. Deadfalls set just a little too high. Snares that would bruise but not break. Pits shallow enough to escape with help. It dawned on me slowly, horribly. "These are guiding us," I whispered, "not killing us." No one argued. By dusk, the trail funneled into a tight choke point where the canyon walls nearly touched. We limped through and emerged into a clearing, barely the size of a living room. In the center sat a single tent, new, clean, waiting. The flap was open. "No." Kara breathed. "No, no, no, no." But we had nowhere else to go. Inside, a lantern burned low, illuminating a small leather-bound journal. Handwritten pages filled with dates, notes, drawings, each describing past victims, how they ran, where they bled, how long they lasted. The final page was blank, except for today's date, and a note written in careful block letters. Group of 4. 2 injured. Predictable. Something shifted outside the tent. Footsteps. Slow and very, very patient. I noticed the first wrong marker around noon. A bright red slash painted on a birch tree, crisp and glossy like it had dried minutes ago. I checked my map twice. The official markers on this trail were blue diamonds, not red slashes. Temporary ranger detour? I guessed. I'd been hiking solo for 3 days, and weird little surprises were part of the deal, so I kept walking. Then I saw the second one, and the third, all red, all fresh, all pointing deeper into a section of the national forest, marked on my map as restricted. I should have turned around. I still don't know why I didn't. Curiosity? Boredom? Stupidity? I followed the new markers. Hours passed. The forest thickened. The air grew humid. And my GPS sputtered uselessly between 0 and 1 bar. When I reached a familiar-looking fallen log, one I knew I had already stepped over that morning, my stomach tightened. I'd looped. Not lost. Looped. I unfolded my map again, tracing my route with a finger. Impossible. I should have been miles south. A snap echoed somewhere behind me. The sound of a hammer hitting wood. My blood iced. I moved slowly toward the sound, stepping between ferns until I saw him, a man about my height, same build, wearing a sun-faded backpack with an orange carabiner clipped to the strap. A backpack identical to mine. Not just similar, identical. Same patch on the side, same frayed shoulder strap, same mud stain on the bottom corner. He held a small wooden plaque against a tree trunk and gently tapped a nail through it with a rock. Another fresh red marker. I don't remember deciding to speak. The words just leapt out. "Hey!" The man's shoulders jerked. He turned his head. Not fully, just enough for me to see part of his cheek, and bolted into the trees. I ran after him. Branches slapped my face. My pack bounced painfully against my spine. The forest blurred into streaks of green and shadow. He was fast, too fast, but I kept him in sight until he disappeared behind a cluster of pines. When I pushed through them, I stopped dead. His campsite sat in a small clearing. My campsite. My tent, my cooking setup, my mess kit, my boots drying on a stump. I staggered to the tent and unzipped it. Inside was a journal, identical to my own spiral notebook. Same brand, same creases, same torn corner from when I accidentally sat on it. I opened it, page after page filled with writing. Not mine. Day 1, subject passes trailhead at 9:42 a.m. Mimic pack weight. Mimic gate. Day 2, subject prefers west-facing campsites. Subject sleeps lightly, avoid noise. Day 3, subject followed red markers. Behavior consistent. Replace next set before he reaches ridge. My breath hitched as I reached the final entry. Day 3, afternoon. Subject aware of observer. Prepare campsite replica. Nightfall. Assume identity. Dispose of original. A twig cracked behind me. I turned. He stood at the tree line, breathing softly, wearing my face's expression, curious, cautious, trying to decide if I was a threat or a tool. We stared at each other. Then he smiled. My smile, practiced and perfect. And I realized he hadn't run from me. He just needed time to finish setting the next round of markers, the ones that would lead him out of the forest and me deeper into it. Thanks for listening. Now close your eyes and sleep.